Hi, it's Wayne Besson, and this is the Wayne Besson Show. It's my first live stream. I'm excited to be with you, and we're going to be talking about news and politics and the progressive bent, mostly, but independent-minded, and we're going to have a great discussion. So it's very exciting to be here. We're going to begin today with talking about how Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, is trying to destroy education in the United States of America. He is hell-bent on turning our country into Florida man, into putting ignorance above education. And if it was just in Florida, because it's a big state, that's bad enough. But what happened today is going to affect everybody in this country. And we all should stop and take pause and notice. Ron DeSantis, to impress his rabid right-wing base and get a foothold for the presidency so he can beat Donald Trump in the primary, what he did was he took AP classes, which are advanced classes in African American studies, and he said, we're not going to allow them in the state of Florida because they're too woke, meaning they actually had accurate history. And because Florida is a very big state, the national AP standards adjusted for the rest of the entire country today. The standards that to take into consideration Ron DeSantis' bigoted, fake concerns. And now the entire United States of America has been downgraded in terms of education. African American studies in the United States is now third rate, is now not accurate, is not true what's happening. Here's a story today from the New York Times. It says, the official curriculum for a new advanced placement course on African American studies downplays some components that drew criticism from conservatives, including Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who threatened to ban the class from his state. So they caved in the advanced placement course. They caved in to a right-wing tactic from Ron DeSantis. And this new framework that they released today, it is not going to be discussing in detail topics that are critically important for learning in today's environment, like Black Lives Matter, slavery reparations, quote, queer life. They're not part of the exam anymore. So Black Lives Matter, one of the most important developments in the 21st century, trying to speak out and drawing huge crowds in every city in this country to say enough of abuse from the police to try to gain equality in this country. The streets were packed in every major city for Black Lives Matter protests. I attended some of these events in Philadelphia, in Washington, D.C., New York City. And to not include Black Lives Matter in a major way is asinine. It's backwards. It's foolhardy. It's an embarrassment. It's a rewriting of history. It's historical revisionism. How could you not have Black Lives Matter front and center talking about race in America in the 21st century? Think about it for a minute. But the conservatives can't handle that. They can't handle the truth. They can't handle factual history. And they want to call the left woke? Well, what the hell is that? That's dictating and brainwashing the next generation because you can't handle the truth. And they can't mention LGBTQ people who are African American. You're going to erase Bayard Rustin, Martin Luther King's right-hand man. You're going to get rid of all of the LGBTQ African Americans and erase them because you don't like them, because your religion, let's be honest about this, is about religion. Ron DeSantis is a religious fanatic, and so is the Republican base, and they don't want to have LGBTQ people represented anywhere in this country. And yet this they went along with this at the national level. They caved into Ron DeSantis. Unbelievable. And you can, I guess, erase people now. You can erase entire groups, entire experiences, entire movements like Black Lives Matter because you can't upset conservatives today. What the hell is going on here in America, folks? What the hell is going on here? And this course right now that I'm talking about is currently being tested at 60 schools around the United States. And the official materials are intended to guide the expansion to hundreds of additional high schools in the next academic year. The College Board, which oversees these AP courses, said developers consulted with professors from more than 200 colleges, including several historically black colleges. Well, yeah, that's true, but they were all overridden by Ron DeSantis and these fanatics on the right that want to rewrite history. And I guess it's true. The winners rewrite history, and Ron DeSantis won in Florida because Democrats, we didn't get our butts out to vote, did we? We stayed home. We ignored him. We ran a candidate like Charlie Crist. God bless him. I mean, he's a decent man, I guess. When he, I guess. But he was a retread. The Democratic Party put no money into Florida, and they allowed DeSantis to romp. And now his policies in Florida are now going national. Think about that for a moment. Terrifying. And it's going to have an incredible amount of harm on education in this country. How can you create a better world? How can you move beyond the racism that we've had in this country, from slavery to Jim Crow, sharecropping to redlining? Then you had the beatings in the South and the dogs and the fire hoses. How can you move on from that? And now we have police to this day killing African Americans. And we have discrimination. And people like Ron DeSantis say, oh, well, we can't have people discussing these types of things because everybody's equal right now. Everybody, we can't be discussing systematic racism in this country because it doesn't exist. That's very interesting because just yesterday, there was a story in the New York Times that black people in America are 3 times more likely to be audited by the IRS. And yet you got Ron DeSantis telling us that everything's equal in this country. And only a fool would believe that, but that's what they want. They want to create a country of fools, so nobody believes it. They want everybody to be Florida man. There's a reason it's called Florida man. It's a profound ignorance, and that's my home state. But there's a reason it's not. It's called Florida man, which is the description for someone who doesn't know anything and does idiotic, foolish things that make the news. And Ron DeSantis wants to create an entire new generation of Florida man. Anyway, I think the progressive movement right now, if you ask me, needs a reboot, is what it needs. We are looking at a situation where conservatives have outflanked us. We have LGBTQ groups over here. We've got African American groups, civil liberties groups. And there's a lot of talk about everybody, getting together and working together. Intersectionality is the name for it. We need that in a major way right now. We have to get out of our silos because to get divided, we are going to fall. And the ironic thing here to me is that the progressive movement, Democrats are more powerful than ever in this country. People can't stomach the religious right. People cannot stand. They want to throw up when they hear people like Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump. This is not the majority in this country. The religious extremists in this country are losing. People aren't even going to church right now because they're so disgusted with the bigotry and the discrimination and the hate mongering. Churches are draining members right now. And Republicans, people laugh at them. They can't win in any city in this country, really, can they? They can only win, not even the suburbs. They have a base in the far countryside, way out there, among the cows and the corn and the wheat. I mean, no offense to anybody out there, but let's just be honest right now. Outside of it, they can't win anywhere. What they have done is they've gamed the system. They've used gerrymandering to win congressional districts, even when they don't have a majority of the votes. They basically choose their voters instead of the voters choosing them. The second thing they've done is they have gamed the court system. If we look at the presidential level, Republicans almost never win the popular vote anymore. They've lost almost every popular vote for 30 years. And yet they've been in positions because of the Electoral College to be able to name judges. And the result of that is that they can almost do anything they want now, and it's called constitutional. Well, we used to say, oh, that's unconstitutional, but how is it unconstitutional when you have people like Clarence Thomas and Amy Coney Barrett sitting on the Supreme Court and Alito and so forth? Constitutional is what they say it is. So they've gerrymandered these districts, and in doing so, they're able to run states that they have a bare majority or don't have a majority, but they're still able to run them. And the end result for that is, in places they do have a majority, they're able to ramrod these bills. And some of these bills are crazy. I mean, we saw one in Missouri recently, a couple weeks ago, where they told women lawmakers how they can dress. They're trying to ban drag shows across the country, take medical interventions away from transgender people that the doctors and all the medical associations say are needed. They are trying to ban critical race theory, basically accurate history about African Americans. They want everybody to pretend that racism is gone, even though they're the biggest racist in this country. And so they are getting away with it right now. And it's incredibly concerning, and the progressive movement's not doing anything. These right-wing nuts, they show up at drag shows, and they show up with the Proud Boys and the 3%, all these right-wing thugs, and nobody counters them. They're allowed to shut down events these days. They're allowed to take medical care away from trans people. They're allowed to take the right to choose away from women, and they enforce this with their brown shirt type of thugs in places, like the Proud Boys. And where the hell are all the progressive groups today? Where the hell are the Democrats? We're the majority, and yet we treat ourselves like we are the minority right now in this country. And until we get our act together and organize in a much more robust way, meaning when we are going to have a drag queen reading hour, we know that the right wing's coming, we send a couple hundred people out there to get in their face if need be. We don't just sit there and take this abuse that they are throwing at us. And when they try to take rights away from women, we organize, we have referendums, and like they had in Kansas. And we take back the right for women to have reproductive freedom. We first have to start with remembering that we are the majority and they are the minority in this country. Nobody can stand their agenda. That is why they have gerrymandered so much. That is why they have cheated with the courts, like Mitch McConnell not allowing Merrick Garland to have a vote and stealing that pick from Barack Obama. So we in this country as progressives need to take a real deep breath and say, how can we, all these different movements out here, African American, Asian, LGBTQ, civil liberties groups, how do we get together to make sure we have people at school board meetings? So these fake parent groups that they have that are all up in arms about everything, which are really just a front for right-wing Christianity, trying to shove it down everybody's throat. How can we make sure we show up? How can we make sure when they try to ban books in the library that we're there? You can hear a car in the background. That's the beauty of live streaming, right? No, but seriously, if they're banning books across this country, hundreds, thousands of books. So young people can't answer the questions they want and that they're asking. And we're looking at as propaganda from the right. And this needs to stop. But where's our side at these libraries? Where's our side at the school board meetings? We need to stop and take a hard look at ourselves and reconfigure our movement right now, because we've gained the advantage in terms of popularity. I mean, for example, same-sex marriage, 70% of Americans approve, and yet we're getting destroyed by these right-wing blue-nose hypocrites that are banning books and screaming, drag queens! Why are they screaming drag queens? Like, drag queens have been around forever. Straight people love drag queens. You can't even get into a drag show if you're gay anymore. Straight people love them. They're funny. Everybody's laughing at them, except the religious right, they're lusting after them. And the question is, why aren't we standing up for ourselves? Why aren't we organizing like they are? And if we do not do that, a minority in this country that's committed, and should be committed to a mental institution, but they are going to take over this country. Everyone, I can't tell you how many conversations I had, we'll never take away the right to choose. Roe v. Wade is safe. And we had the Dobbs decision. Gonna wake up yet? We're gonna wake up? I think we need to. And they're gonna take this abortion issue, they're gonna take it across the country. And state by state, they're gonna try to ban it. And nationally, if they get a chance, they're going to ban it. And we're not prepared right now. Are we prepared? Do you feel prepared as a progressive movement? Liberals, do you feel prepared? We're just sitting on our asses. Books are being taken out of the library like it's 1950. But it's 2023, and we are going back in time. And today's, where I began with this AP issue, with Ron DeSantis setting standards for African Americans across the country. You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. We need to do better than that. But it's interesting, though. With Ron DeSantis, a lot of this has to do with politics. He's trying to beat Donald Trump. He's trying to rise in the polls to become the next president of the United States. And that's terrifying. But even more terrifying maybe is Donald Trump, because he's certifiably crazy and tried to throw a coup. But the primary in the Republican Party is already, it's underway. And the gloves have come off. Trump criticized DeSantis and called him disloyal. And DeSantis responded by basically calling himself a winner. And he called Trump a loser. And I mean, that's he did so, and he didn't exactly say it like that. Here is what he had to say. Let's play this now.
And the good thing is that the people are able to render a judgment on that, whether they reelect you or not. And I'm happy to say, in my case, not only did we win re-election, we won with the highest percentage of the vote that any Republican governor candidate has in the history of the state of Florida. So what I would just say is that verdict has been rendered by the people of the state of Florida.
Well, that was basically a fuck you to Trump, if you want to, you want to say it that way, right? And Donald Trump, he is fighting back. He's just not going to take this lying down. And he angrily retorted by writing on Truth Social, I got 1.2 million votes more than Ron DeSanctimonious in the great state of Florida. Also, 12 million more votes in 2020 than in 2016, and won. That pissed Trump off. He went for the jugular, and he posted a video of DeSantis from 5 years ago, where the governor was indisputably trying to portray himself as reasonable and mainstream. And that incarnation of DeSantis, his role model, was the moderate former Congressman Paul Ryan of Wisconsin. Here, you won't believe this clip. I thought it was actually pretty interesting that Donald Trump found this clip. And it was very revealing, in my view. It's very, very revealing. Where did that clip go? I'm trying to locate it. I cannot find it. Give me 1 second. One second. I'm trying to find this clip. First live stream. So cut me some slack here. Where'd the clip go? Okay, there it is. All right, we're going to play the clip now, where Donald Trump said that Ron DeSantis is a rhino, and he is a phony.
I think you see that I've been recognized nationally as being somebody who would be different, who would be a leader, who could be somebody like a Paul Ryan.
You do not have to wear those masks. Please take them off. Honestly, it's not doing anything, and we got to stop with this COVID theater. So if you want to wear it, fine.
Yeah. Well, anyway, you heard the last clip when we had Ron DeSantis, who sounds a lot different. He sounds a lot different than he does today. Here he is trying to pretend that he's just a Paul Ryan Republican, and I don't think that's a good look. I think Donald Trump scored some points there. Ron DeSantis in that clip looked disingenuous, phony, insincere. He looked opportunistic, untrustworthy. He looked like an actor playing a role to appease the rabid, he's looking like an actor playing a role to appease the base. He had a different persona, kind of like Elaine Stefanik of New York. And they changed when Trump came along. DeSantis went from being a Paul Ryan Republican to being a rabid, crazed Republican. And now you can see that this guy just will do anything for power. But, I do think it's important to say that Ron DeSantis is overrated. He ran against a weak candidate in Charlie Crist. The Democrats did not organize or spend any money in Florida. You had voter suppression and favorable midterm conditions. Had Trump not endorsed extremists such as Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania and Kerry Lake in Arizona, there could have been a red wave. But the reason DeSantis did so well is that, according to the New York Times, Democrats failed to adequately invest in the offices, staffing, and other resources necessary to reach voters in a large, inexpensive state. They continue to outsource basic party functions, such as voter registration, to outside groups whose effectiveness some Democrats have increasingly called into question. And after the results, there will not be a single Democrat statewide for office for the first time in Florida since Reconstruction. So, again, everything was working in the right way for DeSantis. His opponent was weak, and the Democrats didn't spend money. Also, DeSantis engaged in incredible voter suppression. He blocked the Department of Justice election monitors from gaining access to polling. Why? What was he hiding? A Republican strategist, Anna Navarro, said on CNN, quote, he gamed the system and turned Florida into an unlevel playing field. They changed election laws, making it harder to vote by mail. They paraded a bunch of black people they had arrested for voter fraud in front of the national media. He created an election police. And turnout was 10 points lower than it was in 2018. What you had was a depressed, deflated vote. So did DeSantis really win by that much? Or how much did voter suppression play in this? Is he going to be able to do nationally what he did in Florida? Probably not. Other weaknesses. DeSantis repeatedly won't criticize Nazis. There's been at least 3 times that Nazis have come to the state of Florida. Well, they're in Florida, but I mean, they went very public. One time was at Walt Disney World in front of it. The Nazis protested. They waved the swastika flag. Another time was at a stadium, and they were backing Kanye West's anti-Semitic remarks. And instead of condemning them, DeSantis didn't say anything. And there was another time that the Nazis came. So this is a guy, if he runs for president, is going to have to answer, why are you afraid to criticize white supremacists? What is it about white supremacists, Mr. DeSantis? Because you're outspoken against, say, drag queens. You're outspoken against African Americans. You're outspoken against women and their reproductive freedom, and yet you cannot stand up and condemn the Nazis? Very interesting, very revealing, and I think that's going to hurt him. Another problem Ron DeSantis is going to have is that he's a bully, and nobody will forget, especially when he's running for president, the time he threw a press conference, and he sat there and he humiliated and upbraided and insulted these young kids that were trying to protect their health from COVID-19. They were wearing masks, and the governor came in and let them have it. Here, I'll show you that clip right now. It's all you need to know about Ron DeSantis.
You do not have to wear those masks. I mean, please take them off. Honestly, it's not doing anything, and we got to stop with this COVID theater. So if you want to wear it, fine, but this is ridiculous.
All right. Well, it's good to be at USF.
Yeah, so you've got a situation where Ron DeSantis is sitting there and yelling, humiliating kids. Who does that? How's that going to play in a presidential race? You're going to see that clip over and over and over again. And the video shows something even more revealing. It shows a potential personality disorder. It also ignored Ron DeSantis' failures in protecting his constituents from COVID-19. While many low-information Florida voters celebrated DeSantis' lax COVID policies, there are 82,000 Floridians that died from COVID since the beginning of the pandemic, and it's even higher now. The Tampa Tribune reports that, quote, there are studies that suggest that the state could have prevented thousands of those deaths. Thousands. So there were thousands of people who could be alive today that aren't. And, Floridians like to bury their head in the sandy beaches when it came to COVID. Will Americans vote for a man with no regard for public health? Will they support someone who, when COVID came, his first response was to party on? I don't think so. I think that it's a Florida thing. I really do. And I say that, with a little bit of love for the state because I'm from there. I live there. But who can respect somebody like that, who put his political career before the lives of those thousands of people who are no longer with us today, who are dead, who will never be able to speak out against his policies? And the more the national media scrutinizes Ron DeSantis, the more flawed his personality will loom large. He's got a personality disorder, I'm telling you. David Jolly, a congressman from Florida who served with DeSantis, describes DeSantis as, quote, a little reclusive, a bit of an odd duck, He always had his earbuds in to keep people away. You know, that doesn't sound like a real politician, does it? That doesn't sound like someone who's going to connect with the broader electorate. Dexter Filkins further elaborated on DeSantis' personality deficit in a sprawling New Yorker profile. In basic human interactions, DeSantis botches it every time. The New Yorker profile said, nearly everyone I talked to who knew DeSantis commented on his effect, his lack of curiosity about others, his indifferent table manners, his aversion to political rituals of dispensing handshakes, and questions about the kids. The thing that stands out to me there is the table manners. I mean, do we really want a president of the United States spitting food at the table? When he's meeting with the president of France or the prime minister of Israel, or he's with Putin trying to end the war, spitting everywhere? That's how he eats. He eats like an animal. Do we really want that as president of the United States? Think about that for a moment. And then the New Yorker spoke to various people in the governor's past, and a theme emerges. DeSantis is incredibly smart, but he is awkward and has a nasty streak, a mean streak that won't wear well in a long presidential run. The article said, some recall that DeSantis was so intensely focused that he wasn't much of a Yale baseball teammate. Quote, Ron is the most selfish person I have ever interacted with, another teammate told me. He has always loved embarrassing and humiliating people. Well, we just saw that with the last clip of the kids, didn't we? How he humiliated young people at a press conference. Then the reporter said, I'm speaking for, Then the baseball player continued, I'm speaking for others. Ron DeSantis, he was the biggest dick we knew. But then he went on to say at the same time, he had incredible intellect. And that's the frustrating part. He's so fucking smart and creative. That's what he said. The problem for DeSantis is there's a bigger dick in Florida named Donald Trump. And today's exchange between Trump and DeSantis shows that DeSantis can't outdick Trump. And Republican voters, if they love one thing, it's embracing the biggest dick around. And that's Donald's Trump card. That's Donald's Trump card. He's going to outdick Ron DeSantis. And I think today was a good example of that. Anyway, DeSantis is ruining Florida. He's destroying the state. And I'm worried about it because he's going after universities, too. We'll talk about that in a minute. And he's turning Florida into a new Alabama. And there's a reason people visit Florida instead of Alabama. I mean, they both have beaches, right? One's an international destination. One's kind of a local spot. No offense if you're from Alabama. Parts of it are nice, like Birmingham. But, from a perspective of civil rights and race and sexual orientation and women's issues, it's a little behind. But Florida is going to be the new Alabama. And Joy Reid commented on that. Let's see if we can get that clip from Joy Reid. Where is it? I cannot find it again. First, you have to forgive me, first live stream, so the clips are a little... my producer's here. Say hi.
Hi.
Yeah, we need to know where those are. Okay, so we're going to play that right now. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. It's Jordan. Okay, screen share. No, that's Jim Jordan. No, that's Jim Jordan. Not the right... No, it's the Jim Jordan. That one. Okay, so we go here, and let's...
And in case you're wondering what falls under the umbrella of inappropriate for school children by Florida's standards, activist Brandon Wolf points out that one of the books rejected by Duval County schools is The Life Appropriate for School Children by Florida's standards. Activist Brandon Wolf points out that one of the books rejected by Duval County schools is The Life of Rosa Parks. What DeSantis is doing is intentional. In order to peel off Trump's Republican voters and get them on his side ahead of his presidential bid in 2024, he's turning Florida into a right-wing paradise where the focus isn't on health care or jobs or taxes or infrastructure or, I don't know, hurricane or flood insurance in one of the most natural disaster-prone states in the country. You know, normal governor stuff. But rather on the right-wing culture wars, and nothing but the right-wing culture wars.
Well, there you have it. I mean, Ron DeSantis is, he's performing for a small number of people at the base right now. And you just heard it from Joy Reid. I mean, you have a situation where Rosa Parks is controversial now? You gotta be kidding me. Like, Rosa Parks isn't going to be, they're not going to teach that, or they're going to distort Rosa Parks. I guess everybody's on the back of the bus again in Florida, and now he's trying to bring that across the country. Very, very disturbing. I can understand why Ron DeSantis wants to focus on these culture wars. It's a deflection from his horrendous economic record, where Florida has become unaffordable for average families. Lulu Garcia Navarro wrote in the New York Times, Florida is not a model for the nation unless the nation wants to become unaffordable for everyone except rich snowbirds. Most of those flocking there are aging boomers with deep pockets. While DeSantis has been busy limiting what can be taught in schools, flying immigrants to northern states, and punishing woke Disney working class Floridians, Floridians are being priced out of many Florida cities. Miami now surpasses Los Angeles and New York City as the least affordable city for housing in the United States. And Miami is also second in income inequality, with levels roughly comparable to Colombia's and Panama's. So, he's turned us into a developing country. DeSantis, everyone's like, oh, he's done a great job. No, he has. He's a horrible job. Literally, he has created a situation where only right-wing wealthy people will want to live. Everybody else is going to have to move. There'll be some, there'll be some people who stay to serve the rich. Somebody's got to make them food, right? Somebody's got to clean their houses. But everybody else, the middle class, is going to be gutted there. It's already happening. DeSantis wants his blue-collar voters to focus on owning the libs because he doesn't want them to realize they can no longer afford to own homes. It's the old Republican trick of throwing red meat to distract from reality. And this latest gambit, this is really disturbing. He's going after, to make a point, the most progressive school, the most progressive college in all of Florida. It's called New College. It's a university of 700 students in Sarasota. And he has replaced school board members with hardcore religious ideologues who are interested in imposing a crazy authoritarian agenda with hard right views on faculty and staff. This is right out of the Soviet Union playbook. This is Pravda, what we're looking at right now. So he picked the most liberal university, New College, and he's bastardizing it. And he's turning it into a right-wing nut school that's all about indoctrination and zero in education. And one of the nuts that he put on the board of New College is Christopher Rufo. He's a notorious anti-gay and anti-trans activist. And he's most notable for sliming LGBTQ people as groomers. So this lunatic, to be quite frank, is trying to smear LGBTQ people as child molesters, when in fact most of that happens in the church now, doesn't it? And he's also appointed DeSantis a dean at conservative Hillsdale College in Michigan, and a senior fellow at the Claremont Institute, right-wing think tank. Florida Education Commissioner Manny Diaz said that, quote, it's our hope that New College of Florida will become more along the lines of Hillsdale of the South. Why would we want to be the Hillsdale of the South? Hillsdale is a private, conservative, Christian liberal arts college. Are Florida tax dollars now being used to transform public universities into Christian schools? Who the hell do these people think they are? To use our tax dollars to proselytize and promote evangelical Christianity. They're shoving it down our throats, and we didn't ask them to. And in the process, they're debasing the quality of Florida universities. When we send our young people to college to expand their minds, we don't expect indoctrination. We don't expect them to come out of college more narrow-minded and filled with Republican propaganda. And they mention Hillsdale. I mean, the curriculum of Hillsdale is, quote, based on Western heritage, is a product of Greco-Roman culture and Christian tradition. So why the hell is Ron DeSantis' personal religious beliefs being forced onto faculty and students with our tax dollars? That's what I want to know. And the result is much bigger than that. He's attacking University of Florida, too. He put a right-wing president there. I think it was former Senator Ben Sass. He's going after all public universities. He tried to make it so professors could not testify on climate change. This is sick. I mean, the goal of a university and professors is to impart knowledge. It's to often say something that is makes people think, is provocative, and can further thought. It's not to parrot the talking points of the state. And that's what we're seeing right now in Florida. You have to say, if you're a professor, what Ron DeSantis believes. You have to kiss his ass, or you might not have a job. Is that education? Sounds like a cult. It sounds like brainwashing to me. Is really the role of a professor to parrot the role of the state, to parrot the political stand of Ron DeSantis? And if you don't give Ron DeSantis a boost with academia, you lose your job, you lose your tenure, if you potentially even. Now, you know what's going to happen with that? First of all, people like me who graduated from Florida, University of Florida, our degrees are going to be devalued. People aren't going to see our degree with your Florida State, FIU, University of Florida, what have you. They're going to say, oh, you graduated from Florida. It's not Yale, is it? And it's going to be harder for us to get jobs. It's going to be harder for us to be respected. We put on all the work, and yet they're going to see the word Florida on our degrees. And the first thing they're going to do is roll their eyes. Oh, yes, the propaganda state. That you have to sit there and say exactly what Ron DeSantis tells you to say, or you can leave the state of Florida. It's going to decimate education. What kind of top professors, if you think about it, are going to want to work in Florida? What kind of top professors are going to want to stake their career in a place where there's no free thought, where there's no independent mindedness, and that your entire job depends on making the governor happy? Again, that's what they do in Russia. That's what they do in Iran. In the United States of America, yeah, I didn't think that was going to happen. And yet here we are today. And, as I said earlier, Ron DeSantis is trying to move our universities to create a new generation of Florida man, the proverbial idiot in the Sunshine State. He's bringing darkness to the Sunshine State, a veil of darkness that we're not going to recover from so quickly, because once he destroys your reputation, it's going to be a while to get it back. Once the universities are destroyed, you're going to get into a really bad situation, because top businesses, especially in tech, are going to need smart people. And if you're graduating dumb people who don't know anything, how are you going to get businesses to come to Florida when there's nobody they can get to work for them? They're going to have to import a workforce because you have a whole population of Florida man, of idiots. So businesses aren't going to relocate. That's going to destroy the economy. And tourists won't want to come either, because the more the businesses that won't want to come there, the more buffoons that you have graduating with worthless college degrees that don't know anything except Republican talking points. Who the hell wants to come there? As I mentioned, Alabama has beaches, Mississippi has beaches. People don't go there. Locals go there, but you don't have international tourists from Europe and Asia going there. Why? Because who the hell wants to sit around with a bunch of yahoos on a beach? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be cruel, but people come to Florida for its international feel. They come to Miami specifically, and Fort Lauderdale, because it's open-minded, because you find smart people or interesting people, because there's a high degree of education. And the more he turns into Floribama or Florida, the less people are going to come from overseas, and the less people from New York, and a lot of the money that comes into the state for tourists. It's going to dry up. I'm telling you, this is a disaster. Furthermore, poor and middle-class people that are DeSantis' base, they're going to be priced out of Florida if this continues. Only the rich are going to be, because it's not going to be any businesses, so you're going to have a lot of rich people there. That's it. And a few people left over to serve them. And and ultimately, the Republicans, their denial of climate change will cause the state to sink, literally. It'll be Atlantis, underwater, and return to the snakes and alligators, back to the Everglades. That's the future of the state. Marco Rubio's another one there in the state who has a real hard time acknowledging climate change. And if there's one state that's vulnerable to climate change, it's Florida. You're already seeing flooding in Miami, Fort Lauderdale. And it's only going to get worse, because it's getting hotter and hotter, and the planet is cooking. In Florida, you have a few different problems. You've got sea level rise, which can cover the state. You have massive, stronger storms that destroy large swaths of the state. It just raises insurance premiums so nobody can afford it to build back. And then finally, because the state is made of limestone, the water comes not just from above for the higher sea levels, but comes below the limestone and floods from below. So yeah, it's going to be returned to the snakes and alligators if they keep electing Republicans. They're electing the worst people ever for the state of Florida. But this is what the people of Florida voted for. They are literally sinking their own lives and killing their own futures. They're making sure their kids have no tomorrow because they're too blind today. And they're too blinded by hating others, such as liberals, African Americans, refugees, drag queens, and they are voting against their own interest. Republicans are turning Florida into an undesirable, overheated sand trap, and the voters don't get it yet. And I really concerned about this. But anyway, that's my 2 cents on Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and what he is going to mean for the state of Florida if we continue. On to another topic that's near and dear to my heart, Ukraine. Ukraine is the front line for freedom. I mean, without Ukraine defeating Russia, this world's going to be in a hell of a lot of trouble because an emboldened Putin, who is a fanatic, this is somebody who is dangerous. He is a thug, and he's not going to stop by being appeased. And if we allow him to win this war in Ukraine, he's coming for the Baltics. He's not going to stop. I'm telling you that. I've been warning people about that, and it's time they listen. So the first thing we need to do is we have to stop pussyfooting around. We have to timely give Ukraine all the weapons they need. We're not giving them enough long-range weapons right now, missiles. And that's what they're asking for. Whatever they ask for, give it to them. Because it seems sometimes, and Joe Biden did a great job putting the coalition together in Europe to fight Russia. And there's an enormous amount of credit for that and holding it together. Enormous amount. But he and others seem more concerned about what will happen if Russia loses than what will happen if Ukraine wins. And that has to be reversed. Russia, they're going to keep threatening, we're going to escalate. Russia can't escalate. Russia can't do a damn thing. They can't even take Kiev right now. So they're going to take Krakow. They're going to take Kansas, for that matter. There's nothing Ukraine can do. I'm sorry, Russia can do. There's no escalation that they can do. Yeah, except destroy the world through a nuclear war. But if Putin's crazy enough to do that, he's going to do it anyway at some point. If we don't give him everything he wants, if he goes and he asked for, if he goes and asks for Poland, we're going to give him that because we're afraid to get nuked. If we're going to give him Paris next, London, because he made threats. Boris Johnson, the former prime minister of Britain, just said that Putin threatened him with missiles. So you have to stand up to bullies, and appeasement doesn't work. On that note, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has called for banning athletes from Russia and Belarus from the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris. And Zelensky said, the Olympic movement and international sport in general must be protected from Russia's usual attempts to politicize sports. Russia's politicization of sports will inevitably mean justification of terror. This must not be allowed. And a top advisor to Zelensky in Ukraine accused the Olympic Committee of offering Russia a platform to promote genocide. And the International Olympic Committee didn't respond very well to it. They said his comments were defamatory and saying they could not serve as a basis for any constructive discussion. And the IOC then said it would explore ways for athletes from Russia and Belarus to compete. One option could be for athletes to compete individually and not bear their country's names, flags, or colors, as long as they have not actively supported the war. That's just crazy. I look back at those old films, those old clips of the Hitler Olympics, and I'm like, how the hell did the world allow that to happen? And what we're seeing in Russia right now, yeah, it's not Hitler, but it's somewhere on that spectrum, is it not? I mean, you have a situation where war crimes are being committed of the worst kind. Every day you have new apartment buildings and complexes killing civilians that have no military value whatsoever. And Vladimir Putin has no qualms about doing that. I've seen these playgrounds with children getting hit by missiles. Is there value in destroying a slide from kids? Is that there's military value in that? Russia has kidnapped legions of children and brought them out of Ukraine and into Russia, kidnapped them. That's a war crime. When they take over towns, they torture, they rape, they pillage, like it's some kind of sick, fanatical, barbarian tribe out of the Middle Ages storming into a town. Russia has behaved in a way that is sinister. Again, rape, torture, kidnapping, resettling Ukrainian children, bombing playgrounds, prosecuting a war with prisoners released from prison. That's what they're doing. They're releasing these rapists and murderers and thieves from Russian prisons and sending them to Ukraine. Yeah, that's going to end well. So how can you, in good conscience, allow Russia to take part in the Olympics if that is the way they are behaving? Aren't you assisting with their propaganda? And we've already, seen in other sports like this, soccer, the how it was distorted through money, and you had Qatar hosting the World Cup, and the disaster that was. But the International Olympic Committee needs to ban Russia and Russian athletes this year for what they have done. The worst attack in Europe since Hitler. The worst. And they're just business as usual? You gotta be kidding me. It helps with the normalization of Russia. It helps with their internal propaganda. One of the ways that Russia's keeping it together is, they're telling their people, the people in Russia, oh, we're doing nothing wrong. It's just a special military operation. This is a Russian propaganda stream to get to go to the Olympics and make their case and try to appear normal, as Hitler did when you had the Hitler Olympics in Berlin. And we're going to allow that again in this day and age. We're going to let that happen. We're going to let we're going to give up civilization for savagery, barbarism that we're seeing in Russia right now. Putin, dictator, police state. His people have no rights. And the International Olympic Committee is going to allow that? How can we let that happen? And this isn't Russia's first issue either. Russia doesn't play fair. That's the other thing. Russia's a police state that doesn't play by the rules. Russia has been banned already from international sports competition since 2019 because of doping. Their athletes are on steroids. That's why they all look like the Terminator. You've seen them? They look like they can bench press a truck. And yet, there they are. Putin's Russia believes in lying, cheating, propaganda, and domination at all costs. And sports is about being fair. It's about bringing countries together. How can you bring countries together and about educating young people in fair play and sportsmanship when you have a country that doesn't believe in any of that under the rule of Vladimir Putin? You can't have it. If you allow Russia in the Olympics in Paris in 2024, you are making a mockery of Olympic values or supposed Olympic values and the Olympic spirit. So we cannot have any of that. It's obvious that Russia cannot participate in any way, shape, or form. Anyway, moving along. I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of these mass shootings in the United States. Over and over again. The same headlines every few days. So, people are running for their lives, and you see people crying and looking for their children, and yet the United States just keeps going on and on about this like it's no big deal. The United States, we like to be number one. Unfortunately, we're a world leader in gun deaths. And if you don't count active war zones like, Russia and Ukraine, the U.S. already has 39 mass shootings so far this year. 39. Maybe more, because I was like a couple days ago, that stat. And the Gun Violence Archive reports that 70 people have been killed and 167 wounded. And we just reached February. NBC says those figures mark a historically quick start for mass shootings. Governor Gavin Newsom said after a couple of shootings in the Chinese community in California, only in America do we see this kind of carnage, this kind of chaos, this kind of disruption of communities and lives and confidence and a sense of safety and belonging. And he's right. How do we allow that to happen? Here's some sobering stats. And I know people know there's a problem in the United States, but did you know that in 2021, a record 48,000 Americans were killed by firearms? Picture a football stadium. You know how big, you've been to a football stadium or a concert at a football stadium, how huge they are? That's about right, 48,000. Picture everybody in that stadium shot to death. That's what's happening in the United States right now. And since 1977, more Americans have died from domestic gun violence than died in all the wars in United States history combined, going back to the Revolutionary War. And we all were very upset about Iraq. Shouldn't have been to Iraq over the lies of weapons of mass destruction. But Iraq and Afghanistan and so forth and Vietnam, all of it pales in comparison. Revolutionary War, World War II, even World War I. And yet there were more deaths from domestic gun violence, which includes suicides. And what is America's solution to that? What do Americans do to respond to those sobering facts? We stupidly buy more guns. Since 2020, an additional 57 million guns have been sold in the United States. America now has more guns than people. Now, how in the hell is that going to end well? And it's an experiment that has clearly failed. I mean, there were too many crazy people in the population today to just let everybody have guns, especially these long guns, these AR-15s. It's going to, you have all these hotheads that, you looked at my girlfriend the wrong way. It's true, a bunch of hotheads out there. Road rage, you cut me off in traffic, how dare you, your life's over. That's what's happening right now. Too many crazy people. The idea that everybody can have a gun. Everybody. No, not enough checks. It's insane. And everybody knows it, but everybody's afraid to do something about it. And they think if they just buy more guns, and they say, well, if we give up guns, only the criminals will have guns. Yeah, but if you buy guns, they're just going to get bigger guns because the criminals are always going to outgun your ass. You do realize that, right? You're never going to have more firepower than the criminal because, that's their profession. You, the accountant with your little pea shooter, doesn't matter. They're still going to have more. You're not really protecting yourself. You're fooling yourself. And you bought into the delusion that guns make you safer. This is because the Republican Party has turned firearms into a fetish, so their buddies at the NRA can profit. They tricked you. But you're not safer, are you? Our love affair with guns is literally killing our country. A lot of it has to do with racism. I mean, you got to be honest. People are afraid. Some of these white guys, their biggest fear in the world is that their girlfriend is going to get, they're going to get stolen by a black guy. It's truth. And so they want to arm up because they're cowards. They can't actually fight, so they're going to shoot people. That has a lot to do with it in the United States of America. Be honest. Who's hoarding guns? It's all these Civil War worshipping types that are stashing guns and getting a safe house and planning for Civil War 2.0. Crazy people. But there's a lot of them in this country. Yeah, millions. But are we really being honest about the gun debate? It's also the greedy local news industry that perpetuates the sale of these guns. We talk about Fox News all the time. Fox News is scared the hell out of people, especially with race. All these, the black guys and Mexicans are coming for your family. That's basically Fox News, right? They incessantly highlight minority crime to scare people. But before Fox News came along, local news perfected the art. That's all you see on local news. You have sirens, and here we are at the scene of the crime. That's all you see on local news. People forget about that. It's something that, because we focus nationally, but it scares people. They're like, oh my God, I'm always under threat. A 2003 study, Television News and Cultivation of Fear and Crime, appeared in the Journal of Communications. There were professors from University of Pennsylvania. And the study presciently said, crime coverage may not only condition viewers' fears of victimization, but also may affect perceptions of places where crime is likely to occur, and the person stereotyped as typical predators. And the study ended by saying, these unintended effects of crime coverage could also contribute to the decline in community cohesion and tensions between racial and ethnic groups. That warning was in 2003, but doesn't it sound like America in 2023? I mean, maybe we should take a step back and ignore the sensationalized news coverage. Maybe the news coverage needs to start doing news again. Maybe news stations do news and stop trying to boost their ratings. Because they're destroying this country over what? Over advertising revenue? Is that really worth it? Is it worth it? Because that's what it comes down to. Because I know that sirens and police scanners and, arresting people and shootings, it's great for ratings. People, because as they say, you see a call, people can't turn away from a train wreck or a car wreck. So with local news has become a series of proverbial train wrecks and car wrecks. But what is the effect on the country? People need to realize that buying firearms to soothe their fears has only made their lives more dangerous. America is flooded with guns. More than any time in our history, America is guns coming out of its where. But given this number of guns, do you feel safer today? Do you feel safer? I think the answer to any 99% of Americans would be no. So if we have had more guns in the history of our country that have flooded this country, but you feel less safe, there's your answer, folks. Common sense. That this flooding of America with guns is an experiment that has failed. It doesn't work. You just can't give guns like they're coming out of a Pez dispenser. It's eventually going to backfire, or actually front fire if you kill somebody. But that's where we are today, and it's almost not even news, a mass shooting anymore. It's why even show it? News is something new, right? Something unique, something that's happening. But these mass shootings are as much a part of our life as is breathing air at this point. It's not surprising to anybody. And the interesting thing, you go and they're always saying, "Oh, how could this happen in our community? How can this happen in our community?" Well, it happens in every community, right? It happens, in small towns like Paducah, Kentucky. It happens in places like Los Angeles and New York. I mean, nobody's safe. So when people say, "Oh, how could it happen here? We're just a cute little town," well, because you have crazy people and guns in your town. So anyway, it's been great so far with you on this live stream right now. I've really enjoyed our first live stream, kind of testing this out, and so talking to you. I'd love to hear what you have to think. So anyway, there's another story I want to mention. It was incredibly scary, and that is there's this Nazi school, literally Nazi school, that is recruiting children right now. It's called the Dissident Homeschool Telegram Channel. And so you have all these neo-Nazis across the country right now who are taking their kids out of schools and public schools and putting them on this learning in this Telegram channel, teaching them to be Nazis. And there are 2,400 members of this school. And there's probably more, because if there's 2,400 families, and a lot of these Nazis are trying to reproduce a lot for the, let's get the white race, and so there's a lot of kids. So let's just say there's like 3,000 kids in this school, and they're teaching about what Adolf Hitler would do or would say. And they're teaching instead of talking about what Martin Luther King would say or George Washington, it's what would Hitler say? What did he do? And it's actually terrifying. And this group, the Anonymous Comrades Collective, published a detailed report on this. And I don't understand how this isn't child abuse, how these children aren't taken away from their families. You're literally teaching your children about hating others and genocide. You're teaching them that wiping millions of people out is what they should do. You're training them for violence is what you're doing. And future terrorism. So why you have social services that take kids out of houses for a lot of different reasons. Why not this? I mean, if you have your kids rolled in a Nazi school, teaching them to say Hail Hitler, teaching them this crap, then they celebrated their birthday of the school, and they had a Hitler birthday Führer cake. Had swastikas all over it. And, the founder, she said, of this, and her husband, she said, there's a huge network of people like us. If you're asking for what you can do, get vetted and join a local pool party, which is where Nazis can have their children play together. Because they don't want them playing with anybody but, people like themselves because they think they're superior when in fact it's quite the opposite. But you know, and that is, but I don't understand again how you can allow that to happen for kids, teaching them these things. I mean, again, if you're taking kids out of homes for a lot of other stuff, teaching kids the joys of genocide. I mean, if that's not a reason to take a kid out of a home, I don't know what is. But it's pretty scary that this is happening in the United States right now. And I blame Donald Trump a lot for that. He changed the tenor of this country. He made it okay to express those types of views. He made it okay to be a racist or a homophobe openly. People used to hide that. They were embarrassed by that. But they're not anymore. They're telling you exactly who they are, what they believe. This is me. I'm proud of this. When they should be disgusted by it and embarrassed by it. And that has to change. We need to get this country back. We need to take this country back from these fanatics that are going to do nothing but bring us misery, pain, poverty, sickness, anger, bitterness, and division. We're a better country than that. At least we should be. And you know, we saw what they did. They tried to take over our democracy. They came very close on January 6th. And we have to guard against that because we know they're coming back for more. We know that they have not given up yet. They're getting stronger, and we're just not up to the task yet. Are we really defending our country yet? Are we really organizing to counter this threat in the states across the country? I mean, they just took away the right to choose, right, with Roe v. Wade. How did we respond to that? Not enough. Not enough. But again, I'm going to remind you as I sign off right now, we are the majority, and we have to never forget that. And we have to take our country back from these, or at least defend them from taking it over. Anyway, this is the Wayne Bessett Show. It's been wonderful spending my time with you today, and I look forward to being with you tomorrow at 4 p.m. So thanks for joining us, and see you tomorrow.